My name is Emily Spitzer, and I practice in both matrimonial family law and immigration law. Who I am as a lawyer, I think first and foremost, I'm just a really creative problem solver, right? I mean, anybody that comes into a law office, they have a problem and they want your help. And there's always going to be different ways to sort of solve that problem, resolve it. And I really pride myself on finding the most creative way that gets my client from point A to point B without so many detours, right? They usually want it to be as quick as possible, as fast as possible. That's not always feasible, but the closest I can sort of keep them on track and accomplish whatever they're looking to do. I think that's a really big strength that I have as an attorney, and I think that's come from not just my own personal life experiences, but my experiences, in undergrad and law school. I went to undergraduate at University of Buffalo right here. I dual majored in history and Spanish, and I did a lot of studying abroad while I was at UB, and most of my time was spent in South America. And I just totally fell in love with it and the culture and just traveling. When I went to law school, I went to Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, so just 3 hours down the 90. And I went there because they're known for being great at international law. And I knew that was really interesting to me. And while there, I was able to, again, have these really amazing experiences all over the country. I was able to do internships and externships on the border in Texas, in Seattle, right there in Cleveland. And I just got to work with so many different people on so many different kinds of cases that I think I've really benefited from those experiences. And it definitely plays a part in how my mind works when my client comes in and says XYZ and I want this. I'm like, okay, well, here we go. And I can just sort of navigate it for them. I now practice in divorce, matrimonial, family law, and immigration. And I got there because I started seeing a lot of overlap between my immigration cases and family law. And so a couple of years ago, I decided to really branch out, and I absolutely love it. I love being able to sort of dabble in all of those areas and, again, use the crossover to help in each area. So I'm doing divorces, high net worth divorces with a lot of complex financials, custody, immigration cases that are so fact dependent and so important to people, right? It's their lives, and it's so important. And then all of that kind of still ties into business immigration cases I do, work visas for people. Again, they're all obviously part of people's lives, and I really love getting to be part of the before and after, right? So you come in and it's the before, and then hopefully I get you to the after right where you want to be. So, yeah. So when I was growing up, my family always just sort of suggested I become a lawyer, and I can only imagine it's because they were tired of my arguments. I was always very well spoken, and I always wanted to be right. There's some attorneys on my father's side of the family. But as I was moving through grade school, I learned to speak Spanish. I'm bilingual in Spanish. And so then it kind of came, hey, this would be a really easy progression into immigration law, which is a huge market. There's a lot of need. And so I was always thinking that way. When I went through undergrad, went to law school, it just felt natural. And I was really passionate about it. And I guess the rest is history. After I graduated law school, I applied for and was selected for a very prestigious immigration law fellowship with the Immigrant Justice Corps, which is based in New York City. And so for the next 2 years after graduating, I worked as an attorney representing unaccompanied immigrant children. So that means they've come to the United States without their parents. They're all alone. And they could be a baby that came with their siblings up to age 19. And all of those cases, I have to be honest, are memorable to me. You're representing some of the most vulnerable members of our society, and it's a lot of responsibility. and you really take it seriously, because a lot of times they are life and death cases. You know, if this 5-year-old child goes back to wherever they're from, you know, that's it for them. They're going to end up, you know, losing their life for one reason or another. And so they're all memorable. But if I had to pick one, she was a young girl who was born deaf. But not only was she born deaf, she was born in a country where there's not a lot of resources, not a lot of understanding, and her family was really tied up with the gangs. And somehow she made it here. She couldn't really communicate. She never had the opportunity to learn sign language or anything else. And I was really proud to be able to connect her with services and then work on her legal case. And so she picked it up so fast. She was so smart, and before you knew it, she was using sign language and able to tell her story. And I feel very honored to be a part of, you know, this critical moment in her life. I was able to win her asylum so she can stay here and go to a special school and just have a safe the rest of her childhood can be safe. And, you know, I'll never forget her. So I think that's my most memorable. Outside of work, I spend all my time with my husband, my 2 big dogs. I mean, they're gigantic, like 100 pounds, and the rest of my family. My family is all here in Western New York. I grew up here. I love it. And we spend our time, you know, going out to Shays, to different restaurants, and we really like to spend time outdoors. So we do a lot of hikes and camping, canoeing and fishing, things like that. And I absolutely love to cook. So even when I get home on a Wednesday night after a long day of work, I'm always trying to whip up something different in the kitchen. It usually ends well. I think I'm usually successful. But that's definitely some of my passions, you know, outside of work. If I had to give a legal tip, doesn't really have anything to do with the law, I suppose, but my recommendation is always that there has to be that trust and honesty between an attorney and their client. So many times I've been working a case and a client will say to me, well, I didn't mention this because I didn't think it was important, or I was embarrassed to say, and it ends up being a key component of one aspect of their case. And in fact, I've had it change the whole landscape of a case before. And so I think that rapport between attorney and client is so, so important, because if, you know, one of you doesn't know the full story, it can change everything. So my tip would be, you know, make sure you're comfortable with your attorney. You have to feel like this is someone I can be honest with, and I can, you know, share my story with, and I can trust them to use that information to help me.